I'm the middle sibling of three brothers. Both of my brothers were scouts growing up. My older brother even made it all the way to Eagle Scout. But for some reason, my parents never pushed me to join, which always felt strange because I remember being incredibly jealous of my older brother, especially during events like the Pinewood Derby or the camping trips. Those trips fascinated me. A whole weekend in the wilderness, campfires, tents, sleeping outside. To a kid like me, that sounded like the greatest adventure imaginable. One time, when I was about 7 or 8, my brother brought home his scout tent to practice setting it up in our backyard. That's when I had an idea. If I couldn't go camping with the scouts, I would just camp in the backyard. My brother loved the idea. My parents thought it was cute, so they helped us set everything up. Our backyard was huge. It backed up into a patch of trees, and the surrounding yards didn't really have fences. It almost felt like being in the woods. My parents even lit the fire pit so we could roast marshmallows. My little brother joined us for that part, but since he was only 4, my parents made him come inside when it was time to sleep. So eventually, it was just me and my older brother in the tent. This was back when the Game Boy Advance SP was the coolest thing a kid could own. So we zipped ourselves into our sleeping bags and played games for a while. I remember I was obsessed with Super Mario Bros. 2 at the time. Eventually, we shut off our Game Boys and tried to sleep. But I couldn't. Sleeping in a bag on the ground was way less comfortable than I expected. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours before finally drifting off. At some point during the night, I woke up. For a moment, I didn't even recognize where I was. The inside of the tent was dark, lit only by faint moonlight through the fabric. Then I noticed something. My brother's sleeping bag was empty. The tent zipper was still closed. I assumed he must have gone inside because he couldn't sleep. And suddenly, the tent felt very small and very lonely. The idea of being out there alone started to scare me, so I decided I'd go inside too. I slowly unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside, and that's when I saw him, a man, sitting by the fire pit. He was facing the tent. Even in the darkness, I could tell he was looking straight at me. It definitely wasn't my brother, and it definitely wasn't my dad. I gasped and immediately zipped the tent shut, diving back into my sleeping bag like that thin piece of nylon could somehow protect me. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then I heard something, the sound of a chair shifting. A few seconds later, a shadow appeared on the outside of the tent, blocking the moonlight. He was right outside. I held perfectly still, hoping he would think the tent was empty. Then I heard the zipper, very slowly, sliding downward just a few inches. The opening was tiny, but enough, and through the small gap near the bottom of the zipper, I saw an eye, pressed right against the opening, watching me. The white of it stood out in the darkness. I was completely frozen. Then the eye narrowed slightly, like the person was smiling. The zipper moved again, another inch. That's when I finally screamed. I kicked my way out of the sleeping bag and crashed into the tent poles, nearly collapsing the whole thing. Outside, I heard footsteps sprinting away. At the same moment, the back porch light flicked on. My dad burst out the door and ran across the yard, but whoever the man was, he was already gone. The police were called. They searched the neighborhood, but never found anyone. For weeks afterward, I was terrified to sleep alone. But what happened next made it even worse. About a month later, I was at school during recess. We were playing near the fence that separated the playground from the street. That's when a man's voice said, "Hey." I turned. A man was standing on the other side of the fence. He asked me for directions somewhere. I told him I didn't know. Then he looked at me carefully and said, "Your name's Chris, right?" My stomach dropped. I lied and said no. The man smiled. Then he said something that still haunts me to this day. "You don't remember me, do you?" I ran straight to one of the recess monitors. But when they looked toward the fence, the man was already gone. To this day, I'm convinced it was the same person from the tent. And sometimes I still think about one terrifying possibility. What if my brother hadn't gone inside that night? What if I had opened the tent? When I was 21, I bought my first house. It was about 50 miles outside Salem, Oregon. Most of my furniture came from Facebook Marketplace or hand-me-downs from family. One day, I found a listing that caught my eye. A cream-colored sectional couch and a Cannondale mountain bike. Both looked almost brand new, and they were being sold ridiculously cheap. The seller agreed to let me pick everything up that evening. The address was along the Oregon coast. When I checked a satellite view, the house looked massive, like a cliffside mansion overlooking the Pacific Ocean. When I arrived, something immediately felt off. The house looked like it belonged to a millionaire, but parked in the driveway was a beat-up old sedan. I walked up to the front door. There was a sticky note on it. "Doorbell broken. Please use back door." Weird, but okay. So I walked around to the backyard. The view was incredible, a massive deck overlooking the ocean cliffs. I knocked on the sliding glass door. No answer. I waited a minute. Still nothing. So I walked down the lawn toward the cliff to take a picture of the sunset. When I turned back toward the house, every window had its blinds open, and there was a person standing at each one, perfectly still, just staring at me. At first I thought they might be mannequins, until I noticed something. Every single one of them was smiling. I immediately turned and jogged back toward my truck. When I reached the front yard, I glanced back. The front door was open now, and a man stood on the porch, watching me leave. I drove straight to the nearest neighbor's house. The neighbor called the homeowner, and the homeowner said something chilling. He wasn't even in town. Police checked the house later. Nothing was stolen. The doors were unlocked. But whoever those people were, they were already gone. One weekend, my parents went out of town, so I decided to throw a small pool party at our house. We had a pool house and a big backyard that backed up into dense woods. Earlier that afternoon, while I was setting up tables, I suddenly heard a cough coming from the trees. It was a man's cough, and it came from just inside the tree line, close enough that whoever made it could definitely see me standing there. I called out, asking if someone was there, but there was no response. No footsteps, no branches moving, just silence. The quiet made it feel like someone was standing perfectly still behind a tree watching me. After a while, I brushed it off and continued setting up for the party. By nighttime, about 20 people were in the backyard. There was music, drinks, and the people swimming in the pool, and everything felt normal again. Around 1 a.m., everyone left, so I cleaned up a little. locked the sliding back door, and went upstairs to bed. About an hour later, I woke up suddenly to a loud splash, like someone jumping into the deep end of the pool. A second later, I heard swimming, slow strokes moving through the water. I got up and looked out the window toward the backyard, and in the glow of the pool lights, I saw a man swimming calmly back and forth in my pool. I had never seen him before. I yelled, "Who's there?" He stopped swimming and slowly looked straight up at my window. Then he calmly climbed out of the pool. Instead of running away, he started walking directly toward the house. A few seconds later, I heard the sliding door downstairs open. I know I locked it. I'm positive. My heart started pounding as I locked my bedroom door and called 911. While whispering to the operator, I heard wet footsteps downstairs moving across the floor, slow and methodical. Then I heard the stairs creak as the footsteps started coming up, one step at a time. They reached the hallway and stopped right outside my bedroom. The door handle slowly moved once, twice, 3 times. Then there were 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. A voice on the other side of the door said quietly, "It's me. Open the door." I shouted that I was on the phone with the police. There was silence for a few seconds, and then the footsteps turned and walked away. A minute later, the front door slammed shut. When the police arrived, the only proof anyone had been inside was a trail of water leading from the pool up the stairs and stopping right outside my bedroom door.